All right, hello everybody. So I'm gonna have everybody listen to this video, and then I'm gonna put the link in the comment section. It's a video by Queen Ifama. It was posted 13 years ago, called "Before the Men Came." So she's particularly talking about the women of the Amazons and the things they used to do, and the bond, their sisterhood, and everything before being distracted. And I said this before, I truly believe a lot of us have ended up where we are because of love, because of being distracted. For me, I keep being shown it has to do with love. It's not so much, oh, you just fell into ego, but you fall in love with people. When you had a solid foundation, when you already had a solid foundation. And, I'm at the point now that this is just me personally. This is the reason why I don't deal with anybody, because I do feel like my wings might have been clipped. Now, I do not believe I am an Amazon. I know I'm not an Amazon, but I've always felt that my wings have been clipped, So anyway, yeah, I'm going to go back and I'm going to let you guys listen. So let me let you look at her name. Hold on. It's "Before the Men Came" by Pearl Cleage, read by Queen Ifama. Pearl Cleage is who wrote that poem. Pearl Cleage. I'm going to rewind it all the way back so you can hear it.
In the time before the men came, back when we could still fly and have babies by the power of positive groupthink, we were Amazon women. We planned and built cities. We wrote great books and thought new thoughts and argued about ideas and aesthetics until the sun set and the moon rose and bathed us all in silver. In the time before the men came, we were fearless, counting among our number warriors, strategists, generals, and magicians who could read the tide for signs. We plotted with impunity and precision and defended our borders with a shining combination of physical strength, mental superiority, and absolute courage. We had integrity, scorning the petty and the vicious, avoiding the obvious, sidestepping the curse of sloppy thinking and obsessive, possessive love that shrinks and stains and trains the ear for bickering and mediocrity as if they were the music of the spheres. We knew how to call a spade a spade. In the time before the men came, we were bold, explorers and wanderers, dreamers and schemers. We lived in harmony with each other and in constant search for the truth of this world and the next one. We were responsible, caring for our own and each other with a bond deep understanding of what it really means to be part of a whole, a sister among your sisters. In the time before the men came, we were loving, treating each other and those we trusted with the sensuality and sweetness unmatched before or since. In the time before the men came, we could still fly. Do you remember that shit? Flying? I mean, flying as in step to the edge of the mountain, bare your breast to the north wind, rub each moon-bathed nipple 3 times counterclockwise, and reach out far enough and with confidence enough that from under each breast would emerge gigantic black wings with smooth blue-black feathers and a span of 6 feet on either side. And they spread out from underneath so that we didn't fly with that difficult upper body strength dependent motion so beloved of Icarus and the boys. We just kind of laid out on our wings and soared. The only motion necessary was a kind of rippling thing that looked the way a fish looks when it isn't in a hurry and the water is the perfect reptilian subnormal degree of coolness. And we could fly for hours without even breathing hard. In fact, we developed an entire art form based on flying. Sort of like water ballet, with 12-foot wings and a touch of bop to it. That and the art of bald head painting were both lost after the men came. Two art forms that just didn't survive the loss of concentration. Mythology aside, I personally was quite sorry to see bald head painting go the way of moon worshippers and winged ballet. The intricate designs and decorations which emerged once the sisters agreed that hair was too distracting and all shaved their heads regularly were breathtaking. And since the bald head paintings were temporary, disappearing at the first serious bath or sudden rainstorm, they were all the more precious. And even though the real radicals said they didn't see the difference between spending 6 hours working on cornrows and 6 hours working on bald head painting, most sisters were so taken with the beauty and the sensuality of the whole idea from start to finish that the movement to outlaw it quickly died and was never raised again. But that was in the time before the men came. See, the problem wasn't so much in their coming, but in what their coming meant to us as Amazon women. Our magic was completely dependent on the strength of our collective concentration, our ability to sit within the magic circle, join hands, and collectively focus our minds on one thing and achieve it. But it took the complete concentration of the entire group. And so we worked hard to maintain that concentration, that focus, that power, which is one of the reasons why their lives, while our lives, were so peaceful. Superfluous activity is distracting. It weakens you. So they met twice a day in the completeness of their circle. And they thought about each other. And they thought about themselves. And they thought about their strength and their wisdom and their loving kindness. And they thought about their power. And then they would focus intently on the pertinent question, which on any particular day might be a problem of the mind or the heart. Reinforcement of their gifts and powers. Defense, healing, flying, birth. Birth is a good example of how it worked. In the time before the men came, we had our babies without them. What we would do when an Amazon expressed a desire to have a child was gather in the sacred circle in the birth configuration. Say the charms for fertility and conception, and then concentrate really hard. And if the time was right and the concentration was total, a girl child would begin to grow inside her mother. Only girl children would be conjured in this way. It was, in any case, an all-female society, so that question of male children was pretty much moot. But if the time was not right, or if the sister was not really ready, or if someone was not concentrating really hard, it didn't work, and the baby girl was not conceived. In this way, the society had a kind of extrasensory method of birth control, and the life of the group, its future, was dependent on the ability of those already on the scene to concentrate and take themselves seriously. Sisterhood was, in a very real sense, survival. It was the same with flying. It only worked as a collective vision. If they all believed they could fly, they could all fly. But if one hesitated before stepping off into the freedom of, into the beauty of, the void, they were all in danger of the crash. It was necessary that close attention be paid at a serious life and death level, 24/7, 365. And it was, but that was in the time before the men came. And then one day, a young sister was hurrying back to join the midday sacred circle, and she saw a man sitting outside the gates of the Amazon city. Now, this was no big thing. Men lived in gender-integrated towns and villages all around the Amazons, and they often had male lovers, although usually not for long. Most men grew uncomfortable trying to love a free woman over the long haul. Amazon women didn't put much energy into the discomfort of their male friends. Discomfort was distracting. When it got to be a real problem, they simply put their lovers and set them loose. Their society recognized no intrinsic value in heterosexual unions and held no censure for any kind of sexual coupling that took place between consenting adults. Men, however, were not allowed to sleep within the gates of the Amazon city. Even on conjugal visits, dreaming women were considered to be vulnerable to the power of the men. And so at first moon, they were escorted outside the gates and wished good night. But somehow, this man seemed different from the others she had known. It was almost as if he had a glow around his head or something. And he was holding all the...
All right, I gotta go to part 2. This is around the time where you can only do 10 minutes. So now I'm gonna play part 2 here.
things you like to see a man holding, depending on your personal preferences, style of courting, and private fantasies. It could have been a dozen roses. It could have been a first edition of Langston Hughes. It could have been a ripe watermelon or a perfect mango. It could have been a love poem. It could have been new music. It could have been his heart. The only thing it could not have been are in the category of Mercedes-Benzes and Rolex watches and secure retirement plans. It has to be something that touches your soul like it touched her soul, like it always touches mine. The real stuff, the scary stuff, the love to the grave and beyond stuff. That's the stuff he was holding when she saw him, and it startled her. And she looked into his eyes, and he smiled and touched her cheek and spoke to her in a rich, chocolate brown voice full of love and sex and responsible fatherhood. And he said, I think you are so fine, and I want to make love to you, so why don't you stop doing whatever it is you're doing and come and sit down here and let me rub your head, and you can listen to me talk about myself for a while, and maybe you could tell me some things I hadn't thought of on my own, and maybe these things would bring peace and health and prosperity to my life, and you could feel good too when I got around to it. And hey, I think I love you. And she was amazed to feel her knees go weak and her cheek flush crimson. And also, she trembled and she wanted to touch him and have him touch her. And she checked her watch and said to herself, the meeting isn't for 15 minutes yet. It won't hurt to stop for just a second and see what this brother is into. I don't care what he's holding. And she smiled and said, that is the lamest rap I've heard in ages. We got cities to build and poems to write and gold mines to discover and babies to create and passion to bring to full flower. Why should I want to spend my every waking hour looking at you? And he said, I don't know, because I want you to. And she wanted to say, nigga, please, but she couldn't speak. She found herself paralyzed by the glow around him. She watched herself reaching up, turning her face to his, opening her lips and her arms and her softness to him, and she was distracted and late and AWOL for no good reason that I can think of. Can you? And her sister sat quietly in the circle waiting for her. Couldn't start without her, powerless without her, looking at the space her presence was supposed to fill, but she didn't come, and she didn't come, and she didn't come. But somewhere just outside the gates of the Amazon city, She arched her back and offered her neck and came for him, to him, with him. And her sister, who was ready to begin her baby, cried out and turned away. And when they tried to fly to find and save their sister, they stumbled and jumped around like crippled birds, too old or too lame or too silly to take off. And it was over. Broken, finished, finito, incognito. It was once burned, twice shy, and too little too late, and they staggered, powerless and broken, to the gates of the city, and threw them open, and saw their sister asleep and smiling, curled upon the breast of this glowing man, and already forgetting the wonder of her wings, the miracle of her magic, the power of her armies. And the man smiled when he saw them running toward their fallen sister and tightened his arms around her. And she purred in her sleep like a cream-fed cat. And that was when the men came. And the Amazons became their slaves and had their babies and cooked their dinners and listened to their stories and dreamed their dreams and darned their fucking socks. And our slavery and powerlessness and our fear and our longing for the campfires where we once held hands and sang with our sisters drove us to acts of madness and self-destruction and amnesia until we arrived at the first quarter of the 21st century, weakened by oppression and self-hate, degraded and distracted by all the things that don't have anything to do with being a woman, an Amazon woman. Until we arrive at the first quarter of the 21st century, straining to hear the voice of the goddess and keening in the darkness for the clarity, the serenity, the strength, and the sisterhood of the time, before the time, before the time, before the time, the men came. That was in the Time Before Men Came, a past prologue by Pearl Cleage.
Okay, you guys, so that's it. And this was uploaded 13 years ago, so I had to, I had to go to part 2 because, during that time, you can only upload for 10 minutes at a time. Okay, so, it had to be a part 2. But anyway, so that'll be it. I wanted to just go through some of the, make this an extension to what I was talking about earlier, about it's all about the foundation. And this reality as we see it don't have to stay this way, because there were other realities prior, there were other civilizations prior. What happened to them? Those civilizations could have lasted a lot longer than where we are currently right now. Those civilizations could have been around a much longer time. But what happened? Something happened to their foundation. And I wanted to play this because I talked about matriarchy. Even though I do believe this is a toxic matriarchy, it's no patriarchy. This is a very toxic matriarchy right here. But still, I started talking about what happened with the sisterhood, what happened with matriarchy, and I talked about them turning on their own divinity, abandoning their spirits, their whatever, their gods, their magic, their power. Looked like for love. Honestly, it looked like it was for love, and all of that. You get to hear where women are pretty much slaves to men because of love. And now women are told, you're going to die alone. You're going to end up with a cat. Those women had all that power. They would be able to come together. They would be able to fly. They would be, as long as they come together and concentrate, they were able to do anything. And now a lot of women these days, they can't even imagine having that kind of power now. They cannot imagine it. A lot of women feel like, not a lot of women, and that number is decreasing. But now you have a lot of women that feel like they need to get married. They want to be kept. That's fine. People have their choices, but they feel like a man is necessary. And it's feel like when I see messages like that continually to be preached towards women, that let me know that for some reason they don't want to see women free. They don't want women to be free. Okay, so you have to keep giving women the message that you need these men. Okay, and if you're with a healthy man that treats you right, that's fine. But no need in being with the person that's just going to take all of your power and take all of your life force and just take everything from you. And you're just completely drained of everything because you're giving all your energy over to somebody else to build them up. And you're never having time to build yourself up. I think it's done by design that a lot of women have all these children to keep them busy, to make sure they don't get to whatever they're supposed to be. So anyway, that'll be it. But yeah, some of these women that have a lot of these children, it's definitely, I feel like, done on purpose. I know these women can have a choice if they want to give birth to all of these children, but at the same time, I definitely see where it's done to make sure that a lot of these ladies are just they have too much baggage on them to move when it's necessary to move. They'll have too much baggage on them. And they cannot get back to, just for an example, these Amazons. Okay? A lot of women who were once those women in particular, with the amount of baggage they have right now, it's unimaginable for them to get back to that level of consciousness. That's what I mean. Because they are burdened with this reality. They are too burdened with this perception of reality. But anyway, that'll be it, and I'll talk later.